I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the leaders of Hamas may be looking for a new home now that Qatar may be expelling them. Prime Minister Netanyahu is under fire from both the right and the left over new settlement construction. And we'll reveal how Israeli researchers may have just found a new way to treat heart disease. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Last night's terror attack in London shocked the world, but here it was all too familiar, and for the Israeli security minister, it's a call to action. What should have been a relaxing Saturday evening turned into a scene of chaos at 10 p.m. last night when three masked men plowed a van into crowds of pedestrians on the London Bridge before leaping out and launching a stabbing spree in the area. 7 people were killed and 48 injured, but while the police managed to shoot dead the attackers just 8 minutes after the entire assault began, locals are still reeling.
I don't understand how they come in, just do it. I don't understand.
What I saw, it was like these 3 men with this kind of bomb-looking belt. I don't know how you want to call it. It didn't look real, honestly. So I wasn't too scared. I don't know why. Yes, a policeman was trying to put himself between these attackers and the rest of the people, trying to scare them. So these attackers didn't really know what they were doing. You know, they were just running around trying to chase people, I guess.
Israeli Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan is hoping that the UK will have greater understanding of Israel's experience now that it suffered from extremist Islamic-motivated attacks. Erdan is saying that it's time for a new global alliance against terror. He's calling Saturday's bloody scene an attack not just against the UK, but against Western values and democracy. For a lot of Israelis, the car rammings and stabbings bring to mind Palestinian terror methods that became popular after increased Israeli security measures essentially ended the threat of suicide bombings. Joining me now in the studio to discuss the ongoing wave of terror hitting the UK is Deputy Speaker of the Knesset and Zionist Union Party, Knesset member Yechiel Bar. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Natasha.
So let's talk a little bit about the response that we saw from Israeli leaders here on the ground to what took place in London last night. Gilad Erdan very much compared what took place to what happens here in Israel on an almost monthly basis or daily basis. And now those living in the UK are going to be able to understand how Israelis feel. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, I agree in the way that terror is terror. And we always, you know, in our party, even if we're talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we always split our enemies to 2 kinds. Those who want to live here next to us and those who want to live here instead of us. And I think that those barbaric terror organizations like Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS, Daesh, of course, belong to those who want to live here instead of us. But when I say us, it's not only instead of Israel, it's instead of the UK, Argentina, the US, and everyone that don't want to live exactly the same way these barbaric people want to live. And this is why I agree with Minister Erdan that we should have some kind of global alliance that include the Western world, but of course also Arab states that understand that these evil forces, we have to fight them in the most cruel way and not make any concessions in our war against them.
Now, as a leader in Israel, what advice do you give to the British government right now? What type of response should they be having to what took place?
Well, first, to be strong, because these kind of occasions can break your spirit as a nation. I know the British people. I'm very honored to lead the friendship group between the Israeli Knesset and the UK Parliament. I think that the British people are strong people and proud people, and they should understand that this is a long way to go because these terrorists are trying to break our spirit as British, as Israelis, as West world is different from them, and we should not allow it. We should understand, they should understand.
How does that look? What does it look to not allow this to happen? What steps need to be taken?
To continue and use any measure against them, to have cooperation on intelligence between Israel. We are doing it already between Israel and the UK and the UN and the US and all the other bodies and organizations that will help to prevent this, because the main war is to prevent these kind of terrorists from making what they want to make. And by the way, Israel prevents it daily. So if we wouldn't do nothing daily, we would have terror attacks in Israel. I'm sitting in the Security and Defense Committee in the Knesset, and I know how much Israel is preventing it by having very good intelligence.
Right, so let's talk about that. I mean, what kind of impact is this rising terror in Europe going to have on European-Israeli relations in the future?
I think that Israel-European relations are good. It's not good enough, because I think that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are putting a lot of stress between us and Europe that maybe thinks differently from some of the Israelis. I'm a very big supporter of the two-state solution like some of the Europeans, but I do think that Europe is judging Israel not in a fair way many of the times. And I don't wish for the Europeans to understand us because they will have more and more terror. I hope they will be free of terror, but definitely the Europeans and other nations around the world, if they will face terror, they will understand what Israel is understanding from the day of its creation. And this is that there is elements that want to live here instead of us, that want to hurt us, that want to force on us a way of life that we will never accept. And I think that the Europeans are starting to understand it. Again, you don't have to change their mind about the two-state solution or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but it should give them a better way to judge Israel and a better tools to judge Israel by facing a daily terror.
Now, what about the Jewish diaspora on the ground, you know, Jews that are living not only in the UK, but all over Europe? I mean, are we going to think is there going to be any effect in the treatment of the Jewish population in these countries?
I hope that for the better, because today we are witnessing a wave of anti-Semitic actions and anti-Semitism that is rising and raised its head again against Jewish communities. We saw the attacks that was in Paris and in Brussels against Jewish in synagogues, in museums. And I think and want to believe that the Europeans are taking the necessary measures to protect the Jewish communities and to understand them, and of course to fight anti-Semitism and racism all over Europe. And definitely a continent like Europe should know the lesson of how to treat Jews. And I think that most of the governments in Europe are doing so, and I truly hope that it will continue to be the case.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in, Knesset member Yechiel Bar.
Thank you, Natasha, and I wish all of us a world free of terror and united forces against these evil forces.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, the Hamas leadership has been living in Qatar since 2012, but it looks like the Gulf monarchy may now be handing out eviction notices. For years, Hamas has been using Qatar as its political headquarters, with Hamas leader Khaled Mashal reportedly enjoying a cushy Gulf lifestyle, complete with tennis courts and private planes. But it sounds like the Hamas leadership's luxurious time in Qatar might be coming to an end. Qatar is expelling several senior Hamas members from the kingdom. They're blaming external pressures only 2 weeks after U.S. President Donald Trump met with Muslim leaders in Saudi Arabia. It's probably not because the Qataris have had a change of heart. They've given Hamas millions of dollars over the years. The Emir of Qatar was the first head of state to visit Hamas-controlled Gaza, and he came with almost $500 million in aid. But with close ties with Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood drawing fire from its neighbors and renewed U.S. interest in the region, Qatar is feeling the heat. Palestinian officials are saying that the current round of expulsions is just the beginning and more will follow. Nothing is more controversial in Israel than the settlements, and plans to build more housing units are now drawing fire from both the left and the right. Joining me now in the studio is ILTV's Max Kleisler with more on the story. Thanks so much for joining us, Max, and tell us what is happening on the ground.
Well, for years, Netanyahu has been taking pressure from the left and the right. From the left, there's this question of, does he really support two states? Is he committed to this? And from the right, there's this question of, does he believe in building all of the land of Israel? And now that President Obama has left office and Donald Trump is here, the right is seeing this as a real opportunity, because Obama was someone who was very vocally opposed to the settlement enterprise, and Donald Trump, there's a lot more ambiguity. And right now, they've announced new settlement projects, and to the right, this is just not enough, and to the left, this is a betrayal.
Well, let's check out your report for more.
Israel may approve around 2,100 new housing units in the disputed West Bank, primarily inside current settlement blocks, and settler leaders are disappointed. Many of the construction projects are old ones that had been delayed by bureaucracy, and the settlement councils were hoping for the discussion of thousands more housing units. The head of the Samaria Regional Council is accusing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of trying to create a voluntary construction freeze. The Prime Minister's office is denying the charges, pointing out that for the first time in decades, Israel has approved a new town in Judea and Samaria. According to some estimates, Israel has invested some $20 billion in the settlement enterprises since June 1967. For Israelis who want to withdraw from many settlements, expelling some 100,000 settlers from their homes is economically feasible. It'll cost around $10 billion. The settlements lie in disputed territory, which some view as the property of a future Palestinian state. But Jewish activists point to their presence in the land dating back almost 4,000 years. The area is home to important Jewish religious sites like the Cave of the Patriarchs and Rachel's Tomb.
Anyone who's walked down the famous Allenby Street in Tel Aviv has noticed the advertisement cards for prostitutes littering the sidewalk. And although a 2011 law has banned all advertisements for prostitution, it's done nothing to stop the tawdry cards and pamphlets. So what's happening on the ground? While 274 cases have been opened against suspected vice promoters since 2011, very few have been indicted. Police are just as likely to go after the printers rather than the pimps and brothels who commission the material. The law has kept newspapers from publishing these ads, but that's just pushed pimps to step up their street marketing. And NGOs say that the advertisements fuel demand for prostitution, encourage Johns, and make it easier for them to find brothels. According to the director of Mitos, the day after prostitution, any child on the street learns he can use sex services, and it's degrading, humiliating, and commercializes women's bodies. Meretz Knesset member Tamar Zandberg says the police are on the John side, and the minuscule conviction rate attests to that. She's saying the law is a dead letter. The real question is, are the police doing their job? There's not a lot that U.S. politicians can agree on, but at least passing pro-Israel resolutions through Congress seems to be one of them. Joining me in the studio now with the scoop on the latest resolution is ILTV's Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for coming in, Aaron.
Well, this is basically a renewal of an old law. You may have heard of the law from 1995, and this is a law that both Obama, Bush, and Clinton have all passed on every 6 months. They sign that little waiver and scooch it on down the line. So this is a renewal, but I'll tell you more in my report. So
let's check it out.
A group of senators, including Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, are pushing a resolution to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The legislation declares that Jerusalem should remain the undivided capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the home of people for the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian faiths, and the bill follows United States President Donald Trump's Thursday delay of a legally mandated relocation of the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. Schumer, a self-proclaimed guardian of Israel, says that the resolution reaffirms the Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995 that states Jerusalem should remain an undivided city. The White House claims that the move will still happen, saying it's not a question of if, only when.
Speaking of Jerusalem, it's Ramadan, and the Muslim holy month means big things for the holy city. Right, Aaron?
Oh, yes. From fireworks every night for when the fast ends to the atayef pancakes that you can smell all the way through the old city streets. It's a very special time to be in the old city in Jerusalem right now.
I know. I'm planning on heading there myself, but let's check out your report first.
For Palestinians who are traveling from the West Bank to Jerusalem, it's a time to pray in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. This means long lines at checkpoints between Palestinian-controlled areas and Jerusalem, and for Muslims who abstain from food and water from sunrise to sundown, these waits are grueling. Sadly, Ramadan also means a time of increased security concerns, as the holiday is often marked by Palestinian violence against Israelis, particularly when radical imams use it as an opportunity to incite violence. Jerusalem police are on high alert. While they will do everything possible to ensure freedom of religion, and the police chief is even wishing Muslims a Ramadan Kareem, there are still thousands of police in the old city. Israel is attempting to make things easier for Palestinians this Ramadan, though, where men over 40, boys under 12, and women of all ages are able to travel to Jerusalem from the West Bank without permits. And 100 residents of Hamas-controlled Gaza have also received travel permits.
Over 3 million tourists come to Israel every year, and many of them know what a pain getting a good tour guide at a good price can be. But what if there was one website and one platform where tourists and tour guides could connect? I'm here with Dani Gadayev, co-founder of Top Guides, a company that's trying to transform the travel experience. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's talk a little bit about this platform. What does it do? Why should tour guides use your site?
So basically, our platform is website and app to connect between tour guides and tourists. We offer full transparency about the itinerary for tourists from the one hand, and from the second hand, or for tour guides, we offer to encounter the digital customers through online management methods, such as a calendar that can be that tourists can book the tour guide through the online calendar, and to show their experiences through.
Well, I know that Aaron and I, we both have a lot of family abroad, so when they come here, they're always kind of looking for a good person to talk to or a good agency to go to. Now, why would we recommend this site to our family members that are coming abroad, right, Aaron?
So our purpose is to do three things. One is to simplify the whole tourism industry by simplifying the tour guide booking method, or the tour guide industry. This is the first thing that we want to do. The second thing is that we want to do is to make tourism more affordable due to the low commission rate, because we did the research and we found out that travel agencies can charge up to 40% commission from tour guides. So we decided to end this problem and to offer a more convenient and more affordable way to travel and to book a tour guide in a more simpler way. Our entire vision is to simplify the tourism industry, because today we understand that the whole booking process, that one needs to go to a travel agency and to see and to compare prices between one agency and the second agency is very, very complicated. So we decided to open the platform and to do it more simpler and more affordable way.
So with that being said, if you're cutting out the middleman, if you're cutting out the travel agent, which I'm all for because I don't want to pay the guy either, but in what way can you assure guests and tourists who are coming to book with these tour guides? How can you give them safety assurances and things like that, that their tour guide, that the what's it called? Yeah,
the tour guide is basically a good tour guide.
Yeah. Right. How are you getting through that?
So as I said, 83% of tour guide providers are the travel agency. We don't want to fight them. The opposite. We want to help them to make their business more innovative. Right. And by doing so, we are combining forces, and we're actually looking for a collaboration with travel agencies to help them make their.
How did you guys come up with this idea?
So me and our COO Roy, that is also a co-founder, and our CTO Shalev, we formed a group to make the whole tour guide industry more simpler. Me and Roy, the CEO that I mentioned, we were working together in a big NGO that provides tour activities for educational institutes and for families. So we, on a daily basis, work with tour guides and with tourists from the other hand. And we saw the old complexity that both sides have. So we decided to end this problem and to open it. So we formed a group with our CTO Shalev and created the online platform for doing.
Well, I mean, it's unbelievable how many tourists come here every year, and I think that this is definitely something that there's a need for 100%. I can't even list the amount of people that have reached out to me asking, do you know any good trip tour guide that you could recommend us to? And I don't even know where to look.
I invite my friends over, from out of town and things like that. They come, they have nothing to do because I'm here all day.
Right, exactly.
The local experience is very meaningful for tourists, and now they can see recommendation and ratings about their tour guide and see their entire itinerary, that it's very unique for us, because other companies that offer the same solution as we offer, they are more complicated, and it's a big issue for tourists to let's tell you, my neighbor Moshe, he went to Japan last month, and he told me a couple of days ago that he booked his flight to an online website, and he booked his hotel to an app, but when he tried to book a tour guide, it was so complicated for him, so he left it and went to travel agencies when he was in Japan. And Moshe is just one person of millions or billions of tourists that have the same problem. So,
well, it seems like you created something that's going to help a lot of people, and we will definitely be checking it out ourselves with all of our foreign friends. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Around 56 million people die every year from atherosclerotic heart disease, but a cure might be on the way thanks to Israeli researchers. Normally, the heart's arteries have a thin lining of special cells to maintain blood flow. But for smokers, people with high blood pressure, and people with high cholesterol, these cells can become inflamed, leading to plaque buildup in the arteries. While there are treatments for this, there's no way to reverse the damage until now. Researchers at Ben Gurion University in the Negev have created a polymer that just might be able to reverse arterial damage and treat heart disease with no side effects. The polymer targets specific harmful molecules, which means it repairs damage without damaging healthy tissue. That's better than statins, which is the current treatment for atherosclerosis. In preclinical tests, mice are responding well to the polymer treatment, so could a new cure for this deadly disease be on the way? Joining me now via Skype is ILTV's Ron Jacobson, all the way from the Israel Day Parade in New York City. Thanks for joining us, Ron.
Hey, Natasha.
So tell us, what is the celebration? How's everything going?
Well, we're about an hour away from the beginning of this parade. This is going to be a very, very big parade, about 40,000 marchers and 30 floats, including one of the government of Israel, which is interesting because a lot of people associate the Israel parade with the State of Israel, but actually it is organized by a community organization here in New York, the JCRC, not the State of Israel, Embassy of Israel, or the Consulate of Israel. Israeli delegates are guests of the parade.
So, you know, it's obviously not happening during Yom Ha'atzmaut. Is the State of Israel involved in this at all?
Yes, they are. I mean, we have a lot of representatives of the State of Israel, including Gilad Ardan and the mayor of Jerusalem and other members of the Knesset who are all here to show support for this. This is the biggest parade in the world in support of the State of Israel. This is the 53rd year that this is happening. And actually, the first parade started with Ben Gurion in the 60s, marching through Fifth Avenue, and that gave the idea for this whole thing. And it's been going on since. You know, there's also some interesting guests of who are the masters of ceremony of this parade.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, who is the master of ceremony for the parade this year?
So we have this year, we have Yeskel, this is Rabbi Heskel Lockstein, sorry for that. He is the former principal of the Ramaz school here in New York. Mind you, the Ramaz school is the alma mater of Mr. Jared Kushner, who is very much in the news these days.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Ron Jacobson, all the way from New York.
Bye, Natasha.
Israelis were proud enough once they heard that Israeli star Gal Gadot would be the next Wonder Woman, but now that her new film is becoming a major hit in the box offices, let's just say that over here everyone is on the edge of their seats. The movie starring Israeli actress and model Gal Gadot is set to bring in around $90 million this weekend, putting it in the same league as the surprise 2014 hit Guardians of the Galaxy. This means it could have the biggest three-day U.S. gross of any film by a female director ever. Internationally, it's doing well too, despite a last-minute boycott in Lebanon. Of course, critics are enthralled by the high-energy performance Gadot is giving to the role, and her Israeli accent is charming audiences worldwide. DC could use a critical success. Its last three major superhero pictures have all been critical flops, and people are calling Wonder Woman a breath of fresh air after the doom and gloom of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. As of now, the movie has a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, meaning almost all critics are giving it a thumbs up.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. It seems like Israeli actress Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is killing it in the box office with an estimated $90 million in revenue over its opening weekend alone. Well, that's a wonder unto itself, which is why today's word is pele, meaning wonder or marvel. In Hebrew, the use of pele becomes more relevant the more you're amazed, with the exception of ein pele, which means no wonder. So you have trufot pele, or wonder drugs, eze pele, meaning what a wonder, hi pele, which translates to she's a wonder, and even pele al kol pele, which means a wonder of wonders. No matter what pele you're describing, just don't forget to leave room for amazement in theaters when you see Pele Woman. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy with a low of 68 or 20 degrees Celsius. You can expect tomorrow to be warm and sunny and with a high of 84 or 29 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.55 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.